Welcome to Daryl's Little Corner. We'll be with you every Monday from 7 to 8. Tonight in the studio with me is a man that's commonly known to everybody. You didn't know he was common, did you?
Oh, I know that.
Yes. He's been everything from a cook to a mayor. He's done everything can be thought of. And Mr. Van Malone, welcome to Daryl's Little Corner.
Thank you, Daryl.
I'm glad you came.
Well, I appreciate being with you.
And Van and I are going to walk down memory lane. That's what we're going to do tonight. We're just gonna take a walk down memory lane. And I tell you what we'll do. We'll start out around the square. Literally, Van, I don't remember. I'm not from here. As they say, I got here quick as I could. But I'm not from here. But my husband says that you used to flip burgers.
That's very true, Daryl. And you know, when we talk about these, and I know Facebook, the media, has been such a conduit of this type thing, because we've got several sites on the Facebook pages that many of us are on now, and it brings up a lot of old stories, and it seems to be in a lot of it, this is some of the favorite things that are on there, and people go back and look at that. There's a lot of people that can talk about Ripley and Tipper County probably a lot better than I, and some of the things, and Daryl and I have talked about this, that we talk about tonight will probably, you know, I may miss on a few of the things, or I may not say it exactly correct, and I surely don't mind someone telling Daryl or saying, "Hey,
Call Van.
Oh,
Call
Van. Van was wrong on that," you know. So, but at any rate, I'll do the best I can, and we'll just look back on old Ripley and old Tipper County and the folks that made it what it is today, really.
Well, see, what you do, you call Van at his job because he owns the place. He's also a certified public. Is that what it is?
No, really, Daryl, I'm what's called an enrolled agent.
Enrolled agent.
And that's a person. The basic difference in the certified public accountant, and they pass a battery of tests and are awarded the CPA certificate. The enrolled agent is one who also passes a battery of tests, basically gaining the authority to practice before the IRS so that they can represent taxpayers just as CPAs and attorneys do. So
you fill out taxes?
No, mostly I fill out taxes, mostly.
Okay. So if you need your taxes filled out this year, give Van a call.
I appreciate that.
Give him a call.
Appreciate that plug.
Okay, tell me about how you got from flipping burgers to being mayor.
You know, you really have to go back. The flipping burgers thing that Daryl is referring to is
I heard about it.
it is there used to be a drive-in, and back then we called them drive-ins. They were restaurants that just had car hops, and we had several in Ripley. I happened to work from the time I was 12 until around 16 at Walker's Drive-In on Highway 4 West. Probably a lot of your listeners will remember that, and it was he was E.W. Walker, but Ed Walker, Mr. Ed, he was called, and his wife, Miss Gracie Walker. And I worked there, and in doing that, whether it's fixing milkshakes or running out to the cars to wait on folks and bring their tray with their drink on it and their hamburger, or actually preparing the food. And that's where the flipping burgers comes from. You know, that was mainly Miss Gracie's job, but I have done that a lot, and I've made many a milkshake at that place as well. But a lot of good time spent there too.
Did you eat at Hans? I think they had 10-cent burgers.
They did, and I noticed just in the last few days, Mr. Hans been mentioned on the Facebook pages on the Tipper County page, and that was one of our favorite places when we were around the square all day on Saturdays in Ripley, and as well as Renfro's Cafe. There was some others off the square, but Mr. Hun was unique because of his German ancestry. And the fact, there again, it was a husband and wife team. He and Ms. Hun ran that, and they ran it in a very small place. It was probably not even a quarter the size of your studio here. And but yes, they made a very good hamburger.
Do you remember a photo booth somewhere near where Crumb Sandwich Shop is now?
I have also, and I have just some vague memory of that. I was never around that photo booth. I mean, I was around that area, I know, and I guess it was just the fact that, I wasn't going to spend my 10 cents or my 25 cents on something, and that's probably the reason I never really, that's probably the reason that it doesn't stand out in my memory.
I understand that Sailor Muse put that in.
And that name is very familiar.
Mm-hmm.
That name is very familiar, and it's familiar to me, and I could be wrong on this, and folks like Jerry Ambrose and people like that could certainly correct me, but I remember that person having something to do with loudspeakers and those type things. And back in the day, and in the day, for me, I'm talking about, late 40s, 50s, and the early 60s, mm-hmm. and I realized we got a lot of folks watching your show who can very well remember times 10 years, 20, and 30 years prior to that, and some of them with better memories than myself. But we would, and I remember Mr. Crawford having one of these things too. People, you had entrepreneurs in those days that probably escaped the attention of most people. Today it would really stand out, but money was not that plentiful, and people made money the best way they could. And I remember folks that had loudspeakers that they mounted on their vehicles, and I guess it's a form of what your TV station is today. Mm-hmm. They would
go through
they advertise.
That's right.
From those loudspeakers.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I somehow associate Mr. Muse with that, mm-hmm. that having something to do with that as well. And I think that I think what you're saying is M-U-S-E.
Uh-huh.
Is that the way you're? Okay.
It is.
Okay.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any recollection of the library being in the courthouse at one time?
I certainly do.
Where?
I remember it could have been two different places. At one time, it was where Ms. Ray, her office is now, which is back behind the supervisor's meeting room. Mm-hmm. And it was a very, very crowded library facility. Something that does stand out to me, and it should to everyone that has a history of Tipper County or that's interested in the history of Tipper County, was that library was actually run by Miss Peeler, who was Lee Peeler's mother, who was the sister of Mrs. Eula Dees from Northeast, whose name is on the library at Northeast. So it's not and it shouldn't escape anyone that in our library system has been under what it was junior college at the time, but has been under their auspices for a number of years, and was at that time. I think probably the supervisors allowed when they put the library in, allowed that area to be used in the courthouse just simply because there was no other area to put it. So, and again, I'm hazy on it, but I do remember going in there and checking out books. But yes, it was certainly down there, and it was on that first floor. There could have been a time it could have been upstairs behind the courtroom, uh-huh. but that's the part I remember, and that right now it's where I think Ms. Ray's office. Well, I know she was there a couple of years ago.
You know, I remember when they kept all of those old-timey court records behind the courtroom. And people would go up there, and
Correct.
we went up there one time, spent a whole day looking through those books.
It was very narrow. It was
And
a
when
very
we came
narrow
out there,
area.
we were filthy.
Oh yeah, it was dusty.
Yes.
And the windows, you could look out those windows because they were so
Oh, it was
darn dusty
hot.
over on the square. Yeah, it wasn't air conditioned or anything.
Do you remember Wade Spires Wade Spires had a
Spires.
machine shop? Oh, wow, I missed that. That's Tate's brother.
Yeah.
He had a machine shop before my time. That's the reason I missed it. But he was a Spires. He had a machine shop somewhere on 15, I think.
Yeah, he may have utilized part of no, I don't really think he did. He was along there where KFC is today. And it was and you see a lot of this too in our history. We carried our bales to cotton on a one bale wagon,
Did you ever pick cotton?
a lot.
Did you?
I have picked cotton a lot.
That's why you flip burgers.
I
without
guess,
picking
I
cotton.
was liking
Yeah.
that flipping burgers. It wasn't a bad deal.
Oh.
Stay out of that cotton patch.
That's true.
But Mr. Spires put in a shop there, and I think he probably had a fabricating shop. That's what we would call them today, metal fabricating. But then when the cotton wagon came into being, where they could haul 2 and 3 bales, which was big wire wagons,
Yeah.
and man, that was a boom for them. That was great. The cost wasn't really that great to build one, and the farmers that were still farming at that time, and that was still when you could raise a family on a fairly small farm. You had to have 20 or 30 acres, but yeah, I think that's where Mr. Spires really expanded then when he started building those cotton wagons.
Hey, y'all. In fact, Ellie hadn't been gone that long. His wife Ellie was Tate's sister. And she died after Tate and I married. It hadn't been that many years. And I've heard her talk about him. He had that machine shop.
Yeah.
He was a hard worker.
Yeah, that's true.
Were there really polar bears in a cage in Ripley? Now, you're not even allowed to have a dog here. Your dog barks. Was there really polar bears?
I really don't know about that.
No,
That's not something that you tell me on that.
I'm told they were out by the cream cup. That's what I heard.
Yeah, that is just.
Myself, I'd be daresome to have a dog in Ripley and bark and bother the neighbors.
I do notice sometimes on the Facebook media, some folks do get the mug and cone up north of town, which is across from where the Chevrolet place is now, and the cream cup, which is where there's a boutique there now that's across from the food giant that's south. Yeah, some across from there. There's Cream Cup there, KREAMKUP is the way it's spelled. And then, of course, Mr. Conn's place, CONN, which was about where Eddie Gowdy's insurance is today. So those 3 places, I noticed folks get a little mixed up on them. And so I did see something about someone saying something about the polar bears, and it made me wonder, because we always had the 2 bears up at Mr. Conn's place with a snowball in their hand, and they're throwing it. They later got moved around in the in the city, someplace. But but I really don't know about those bears at the Cream Cup. I know who some of the owners were of the Cream Cup, but I don't remember that.
So if you know, give us a call.
However, the mayor of Faulkner is his parents, and he helped run it at times, and he and his sisters. he might shed a little light on that. If it was Cream Cup, then Doyle, you need to let Daryl know.
Give us a call. Give us a call. I know he watches this program.
Yeah.
He will. He'll know. He'll know. Did you ever go to Dr. Mooney?
As a real small child, I did. I don't have a memory of it. Mm-hmm. And most of mine, my stories of Dr. Mooney has come by way of Dr. South and others who do remember going to her. I was probably 2 or 3, and I just don't have a memory of it. But the most famous, the most common story I hear from her patients was the swabbing out the throat thing.
If you walked in the front door, yeah.
And so
you say good morning.
I'm sure I got that,
Yes,
But I did eventually go to school at Blue Mountain at the high school down there, and knew her place well, and very, very, very respected person, and I think a very outstanding general practitioner. Yeah.
She was amazing.
Yeah, amazing lady.
She really was. She was amazing. And she took care of people that might not have had medical care otherwise.
That is very true.
She really did. Because she took you if you had money or you didn't.
Oh, yeah.
She really did. She was quite a lady. Have you ever used a black gum toothbrush?
Certainly have. And I used it.
I don't know why we've still got these.
I've
been short of them now.
My grandmother and back in the 40s and the 50s, and I was probably anywhere from 4 to 5, 6, 7 years old during this time, and some folks that lived on our place were just like, and that's the way it was in those days too. They were your people too, and although there was no blood relation, Aunt Mary and Uncle Frank Kent that lived on our place and helped us farm a real small farm were there, and my grandmother lived with us, and she and Aunt Mary, Ma that I called her, she's the only grandparent that I ever knew. All my others deceased before I was born. They would dip their snuff, and they had their little tin Garrett cans. And today that would really be looked down on, but that day and time it was just, that's the way it was. That's just, so me as a 3 or 4 or 5 year old boy, to keep me out of the snuff cans and of course they'd have their black gum, called them toothbrushes, but it's nothing but just chewing up the end of the thing and dipping it in that snuff, and it was just a way for them to get the snuff and not really fill their lower lip with it, and because I guess that wasn't too ladylike. And so I always got the cocoa and sugar mix, and I had me a can that was just like their can, and I had my sweet gum toothbrush, and I'd dip in that cocoa, and I thought I was just as big as they were.
Do you smoke?
No.
I didn't think you did. So you did all that, and it didn't even burn you, did it? I'm afraid there's a lot of those things that we hear today that are not necessarily true. That's right. That's right, too. It was a sweet gum that they chewed gum off of, wasn't it?
It probably was.
I think it was.
Yeah,
I think the sap off of it
I think so.
Gets
I think
like
so.
rubbery.
Yeah.
And they'd pick chewing gum off of it. Now, I have used the toothbrushes. I don't have a lot of teeth. I don't have got any left. I did not use the snuff. Did not use the snuff. But when I go shopping, every once in a while, I'll take Judah, we'll look around, he'll say, "Well, honey, do you remember your snuff?"
And tries to say it in front of a few people.
Oh, yeah. And I could just choke him. I said, "No, hon, I didn't." Never done snuff in my life. It's just not my stuff. And but he just does it just for fun.
Yeah.
For fun. Okay. Tate says Ripley had 3 cotton gins somewhere. Do you know about that?
We used the one closest to us, which was Elliott's cotton gin. Yeah, I am familiar with the cotton gins, and Elliott's, of course, was have trouble recalling the street, but it's right in town. It's located where Freeman Lumber Company has their yard across the street from where their actual offices are, and some of their storage as well. They store lumber and things out there. The landscape there has changed very little, honestly, and Mr. Benton Elliott's family, and Mr. Benton was for many years was the top assistant of our U.S. representative, Jamie Whitten. Well, his dad was the one that had that gin, and they, of course, are the same family as our local chancery judge and one of our law firms in town, the Elliott's. So that is the same Elliott's. The other one, of course, there was Child's Gin, which was down in the area where you were talking about that Spire's shop was at. And it could be that Spire's shop even may have used a couple of their buildings. I just don't remember if they did or not. And because one of those gins burned. The other one that is fresh in my mind, of course, is McGill's gin. And that was Mr. Ralph McGill. And it was down our way here, down south of town. And I think, that's something that just shows how farming was in those times. Both of those gins stayed busy through harvest season and were able to not only sustain themselves, but all evidence was made real good money. And but those times went away.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
They did. When I moved here, the Dixie Theater was a large building where I think there's a law firm there now.
It's a CPA firm. Sue Ellen Babb, Richard Eaton.
And there was two beauty shops, one in the front and then one down on the side of it, if I remember right. And it seemed like a lawyer where the foundation, Ripley Foundation or Ripley something or other is. It was, if I think I remember who that man was that was the lawyer.
Mr. G.W. Floyd.
Yeah. Yeah.
He'd
get mad. You could hear him too.
Yeah. Mr. G.W. was one of those attorneys that did a lot of tax work and did individual tax returns. And when Mr. G.W. decided to leave Ripley, I know I got a lot of his clients that came to me. Miss Lila Anderson had the beauty shop right beside the theater, and Miss Inez Brooks had the one down the hill from the library, which was across from Mr. Paul Rowland's accounting office too.
Tony, load my disc for me. I got a little something on a disc we might look at, and
Okay.
then we'll discuss some more. Well, while he's getting it loaded, tell us about Kenwin's.
Kenwin's?
Remember Kenwin's?
I do remember it, even though it wasn't so much a boy or a young guy's kind of shop.
No, it was kind of a dress shop.
It was more or less a dress shop.
Was it here a long time?
I don't think it was here that long. I remember, I think Mr. Griffin Ladner owned the building. I do remember that a significant, and that's something we didn't see much in those times, was significant remodeling to a building on the square.
Yeah.
Now a lot of that's gone on in more current times, but and I have no idea. Sometimes the renter pays for that, so I don't know. But it was they really upscaled it as far as putting in tile floors, as far as putting a front on it with glass that you could see in, and that kind of thing. So,
well, you about have to have that front glass, don't you?
Yeah.
You got my dish written. Okay. Now this is actually Now, go back to the other one. Can you back me up one? Yeah. This is actually next door to the TV station. And I am amazed by this picture. Do you have any idea who or
You know, I
where
don't.
it came from? Or isn't that amazing?
I don't. I think that Ms. Jumper probably had that done. Now, her husband and I were real good friends, and I've always been friends, or the Malone family has, with the Jumper family. And I just don't have any idea who they got to do that. But it was done either as they opened the boot store, the boot and western wear store, or right after opening it. And but the picture is beautiful. I'd like to know who did that.
I would too. That is amazing. And it has lasted through, but it is fading now. It's fading, but it's amazing. It's amazing. Next picture, Tony. Now, this is at the courthouse. What do you know about this?
Well, you know, there's always been some controversy about these statues. And
I
wish I could have some memory, a good memory about that. To me, and that one there that's on the east side of the courthouse, and I was always told that was actually a doughboy picture from World War I. Now, I see on Facebook, and a lot of people are talking about, and it may be on that statue.Maybe I just haven't read it. It's CSA, that it's actually Confederate States of America. And I do know, of course, that has nothing to do with the statue that got knocked down by the gay truck line. I mean, and some people have gotten that confused. Some people sort of think that was it and it's moved over there, but that's not the case with that statue. But I'm just not real good on that one. I'm not.
Okay.
And that, of course, the one I
That's
just
the old
mentioned.
one.
Yeah. And
It was actually in the middle of the street.
It was. I've driven
And
around
look,
that.
the cars are parked both ways.
I've driven around that statue many times.
Ain't that neat?
Yeah, I've driven around
Well,
it many
back
times.
in the horse and buggy days, that was okay, wasn't it? One day, I'm gonna do a piece about that statue. It's just interesting.
Well, you know, there's plenty of cars and pickups and things like that hit it, but they never could do it any damage. The only reason the gay truck line did is because it was on such a higher wheelbase, and it was able to get above that pedestal that it sat on. You know, I don't think the driver probably didn't hit it any harder than some guy running into it with his pickup. It got hit a lot of times. There were scratches all over that base.
So. I imagine
And
so.
I tell you,
It's in the middle of the road.
it would be interesting to know, but for a good long time, the base continued to sit there.
It did.
Oh yeah, the base wasn't taken up.
Oh, I didn't know
No,
that.
the base stayed. Just the top part, and you can see the base down below there, and it was still 2 or 3 feet high. Even the base was. Now, I mean, the big part, it all got knocked down, but that base, and I really don't know. It was, but an interesting part about that square, and even then, an interesting part about it is that is a state highway. That's State Highway 4.
Yeah, 4 goes through there.
Now, if you think about that, doesn't that make it even more amazing that you had a statue in the middle of a state highway?
Of the road. But it was put during the time that it was horses and buggies.
Yeah. There
And
was
it
nothing
just
wrong
never
with
was
it.
moved.
And probably it wasn't a state highway at that time.
No, probably not.
Yeah.
Probably not. But I just couldn't leave that out. It just kind of
That's a great picture of the square. I mean, you get a lot of the buildings there that.
Truthfully,
way it
I
looked.
think this and maybe one more about all the pictures there are.
And you know that, and that was something I was going to be sure and touch on today. And I'll encourage these folks now that are 18, 19, 25, 30, you know, and you got all this stuff available to you. And I don't think we'll ever go through that again where our history is not more, we're not more able to look at it than then. But wouldn't it have been great? And the only thing I've seen, that video that Mr. Milton Welch and his wife Nancy took in the late 80s, that just VCR cameras, they had just come out, and I guess they were just giving it a tryout.
Mm-hmm.
And he drives all up and down Highway 15 and up around the square, and he's taking pictures with that video camera.
There's probably more of those videos out there. We just haven't
There
don't have access.
there may be, but
I bet it is.
That's something we should preserve.
It is. It
If
is.
there's more out there, we'd love to have.
Yes, we would like to have them. We would. And I get them first. Don't give them to Ronnie. I get them first. Call me at the house. You got one. Call me. Tony, go ahead. You know anything about this building?
Yeah, the old Ripley High School, and of course, lots of folks that watch your show could tell a lot more about this building than I can. I went there one summer term. I taught my father when our schools consolidated, and I was in the 9th grade, and to get out of the cotton season, because we're still on split, the country schools were still on split sessions, I talked him into letting me go to Ripley one summer while I was out of school, between going from Palmer to the Palmer school that I was enrolled at, because it was going to be phased out, and I was going to have to pick Blue Mountain or Ripley to go to school at. And so I just sort of used that to get out of my chores and came to that school for like a total of 6 to 8 weeks, something like that. And but you know, it was very much was a landmark, and it's another item that there should have been a lot more history preserved, especially on the inside, and the old heaters I remember, and those kind of things. And I'm sure a lot of folks that watch your show, they'll have some really precious memories of that building, Daryl.
Yes. You know, when I moved to town, that building was already torn down, or tearing down.
Yeah,
it
it's
was.
probably,
It sat there a long time, just pieces of it, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. It deteriorated, and it was, it was sad.
Yes, it is. You know, it's sad to see history like that.
Oh yeah, it is, and we recognize that more now than we did then. So I think a lot of things are being done now, as far as our whole society, to preserve things like that.
Oh, this historic society and the museum.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna tell you. Let's plug them while we're here.
Well, we should.
Let's. If you haven't been to the Ripley Museum, you missed something.
Exactly.
You missed something. I love museums, and we have one of the best.
Yep.
Now we have. I went up there when Miss Coley was there and toured it. She about walked me to death.
Oh.
Oh,
And the
she was
folks,
quite a lady.
the folks that work there are so dedicated.
Oh, they are,
Yeah.
and they can explain to you what you're looking at.
They sure can.
Sure can. Tony. Any idea?
Well, this is pretty recent.
Yes, it is.
Yes, I don't remember where I was, but I do remember just about that same picture. My youngest daughter, Anna, texted me that picture. I was probably in work at Holly Springs that day. I was working for a manufacturer over there, and she was standing just about at that side, and she texted me that picture to show me Renfro's burning, and then of course I remember that night she and I went up there while they were still a lot going on up there that night, and a lot of people around. It was somewhat nostalgic then too, because there were so many people around that were recalling, their times there and stories about
I worked on the other side of the wall for a while, and
I did too.
And yeah, you did.
I sure
and
did.
we eat lunch
My
over
office
there
was
every
right next
day.
door.
Every day we
Yep.
ate lunch over
Yep.
there, and at that time that was the place to go.
Oh yeah.
Now it was. Now recent years, I think it changed hands several times, and the building had gone down some.
It had.
But in its day, that was the place.
It was.
Now that's kind of like they're always saying, where were you when the Twin Towers were hit? Well, where were you when Renfro's burned?
That's to
the
Ripley
way it is.
folks,
Yes,
that really
it
means
is.
something.
It was really a landmark.
Yeah.
Really a landmark here. Tony? Check that one out.
Well, and I saw this pop up on Facebook a few weeks ago, and of course I remember Coleman's, and you know, it was, I guess you would put Coleman's, that would be your later Renfro's, simply
It was.
because now then people didn't just go to the square. They went to outlying streets and avenues that ran away from your square. And that was, but I do have a question for you about that, because I can't visualize that being Ripley's Coleman's.
I don't think it is either,
Yeah.
because look at the water
Well,
tower.
see, that's what
behind it.
gives it away.
Yeah.
And I tried to
That's
recall.
not our water tower.
Yeah, we didn't have a water tower back there.
And I don't think the Coleman's barbecue was hardly that large.
May not have been. No, that looks pretty long that way, but it was a very, very favorite hangout, you know. And I wish we had pictures of places like Tasty Freeze that was also
too.
up there, sort
I
of
do.
across from there, and the Mug and Cone up further north of town. But Coleman's, that's where guys, you know, and in fact, some of the same ones that I can go in McDonald's right now and see in the morning, and some of the older folks like me, but they were sitting right there at Coleman's drinking
That's
that coffee
right.
then.
That was
Yeah,
the place
That
to
was
go.
the place to go.
Place to go, but I couldn't resist including this one,
Yeah,
even
that
though
is
I
pretty-
don't think this was
Yeah.
ours.
Yeah.
I don't know where another Coleman's was, but I don't believe this one.
No, but
I
they
mean,
had.
and look at the house behind there. I just don't
Yeah,
believe that's
yeah, and but that was a pretty
somebody
big
will
franchise.
call and somebody
mid-size.
will call and tell us
It
we're crazy.
probably so.
That's what
Yeah,
I'm
well,
saying.
they may do it. They may say, "Oh, you remember that
But I
top
don't
water?"
think so.
They're gonna have trouble convincing me that water tank was.
Yeah,
there.
I don't think so. Don't think so. But it was a fun thing.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Tony. Aha.
I wonder if that could be Dr. Johnson's. It
It
could be
sure
Dr.
looks
Johnson's.
like it.
It could be Dr. Street's. You know, that was two of our dentists at that time, and of course that was before Dr. Roten and Dr. Stanford Elmer. Now, of course, his son's a dentist in town too. That was before they'd probably even gone to dental school. And each one of them is amazing. Both of those gentlemen. You had to climb these long stairs to get up to the
Yes,
office.
you did.
And man,
Yes, you
you know, and had wonderful people that worked for them, and most kids in that day and time too, Daryl, they made their first trip to the dentist when they had a toothache, or you know, at least 12 years old. Where today people start their children out. My daughter carries my grandchildren, you know, at 3 years old, but we're that much further along in our.
That's right.
in-
And they don't lose
in
their
our
teeth
health.
like we
That's
did.
exactly right.
No,
Exactly.
we don't. You know, when we went to the dentist, we had to pull it.
Oh yeah.
They didn't fix it. We didn't have the money.
That's
They
right.
just pulled it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you pay for that the rest of your life.
Oh, sure you do.
You do.
Yeah.
You pay for it the rest of your life. Because once a tooth is pulled, you can't replace
That's
it. I
right.
mean, you can stick something in there that looks better, but it's not a tooth.
Yeah.
Can't be replaced. Tony? Now, that can't be, there's not to laugh at. I am sure that was in Dr. Johnson's office.
I guess it was. I guess it was.
I just
Yeah, I do remember
believe
that.
that's the
Yep.
one.
Yep. Yeah.
I don't know if there's another copy of that anywhere.
You know, I don't know. I've seen it just in copies, but as
It
far as
could be.
actually
It
being
could be.
one that you hang on a wall, no, I haven't.
No, it just makes you think.
It'd be
of
interesting to know where Dr. Johnson got that, wouldn't it?
It would. It would. It just makes you think of him.
Mm-hmm.
Makes you think of him. Tony. It's kind of a fun thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, now these guys are familiar.
Yeah. Those four gentlemen
Yeah.
are very familiar.
Most of them still around.
Yeah.
Dr. Stone's
Dr.
passed
Stone
away.
has passed away.
But I noticed on this is actually an old newspaper article that actually I posted this picture myself. I got it from Bessie Von Kennan, who cut it out of the paper way back and kept it.
Yeah.
She did. And I don't know where the other doctors were. There was a Dr. Ketchum here at that time. He's passed away.
Yeah.
And I don't know why he wasn't in the picture.
Yeah, I don't know. It really makes you wonder if that was made after Dr. Ketchum
I
passed away.
don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
All she had, she just cut out that little ad. All she could
Dr.
cut
South
it
was
out
in that
from.
group for a time.
Yes,
too.
she was. She was. I think she started out there, didn't she?
She did here. Yeah, she did. She started her general practitioner there, and I think her intern was in Jackson, Tennessee, I think.
And to dispel some fallacies that has been over the years discussed, she only has good things to say about them.
Oh, I assure you.
She thinks they are wonderful.
Yes. They have always remained
And-
close.
Yes, and I believe they think as much of her
Oh,
as not.
they do.
I don't know why when there's somebody moves on and does something else, they always think there was some kind of a blow up.
We always like to politicize
Yeah,
things,
it's
don't we,
fun.
Darryl? Makes a better story.
Yeah, but they are close friends.
yeah.
Tony. Now this is just a closer picture of
Right.
them. Go ahead and do it again. This is the same picture, it's just a closer. Dr. Ellis changed some. Now that looks familiar to me. I bet it doesn't to you.
Yeah, it looks very familiar to me. We always fixed our clotheslines a little closer together where we didn't have to use that support. But what Daddy would do is we had trees close enough that he just fixed Mother like 4 or 5 clotheslines. This lady here looks like she didn't have a whole lot of support system, so she had to hook one end and hook another end, and then just prop it up in the middle, as we say, But I've seen them like that.
And we tried not to go from tree to tree because of the birds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're right.
And back in those days, now being a fellow, you probably not aware of this, but the ladies back in those days always wore dresses. So we always tried to put our clothesline like right behind the house. Now, when you're out in the country, it's okay.
Yeah.
But
we
you got to bend over and pick, and you're standing out there in the
Exactly.
snow trying to
Right.
hang
Okay.
these clothes out.
Yeah.
And you'd always
And a lot of
have
times wind blowing and everything too. Yeah.
but we would rather have it up close, where the house would be behind you.
Right.
And I'm sure the ladies did that too.
Yeah.
Tony? Aha.
Oh yeah. Till
Aha.
I guess probably not. I visited people and everything, but until I finished high school, that was our rest room right there.
I did a little tour at a lady's home, and I learned something. Did you know? Now this is something I didn't know it either. In the 30s, now that's for our time, the government actually built some bathrooms.
I didn't realize that. Through that.
I didn't either. They're concrete on the bottom, and then it's concrete with a wood lid.
I didn't realize it.
Is that amazing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Government? I never heard of it.
I guess they've been taking care of us a long time.
They
Daryl.
have too much. Tony? Do these guys look
I
familiar?
remember them well, on a Saturday morning, of course. We'd be watching Lance Russell and Dave Brown and
Best weatherman ever was.
oh yeah. And
Yeah.
still is.
Yes.
He's
Best weatherman ever was.
and
Yes.
probably I guess our area when his daughter was killed in that accident and the children, his grandchildren, I think probably more people tuned into that and really shared with him. And I think, I really think that's the reason he's still in the business, just because because he surely doesn't need to do it probably.
No, he probably need the money.
But yeah.
But he the best weatherman ever was.
Yeah.
Tony? Does that look
Used to
familiar?
hang out there. That's where the guys would go after either we we would go out with our girlfriends, and of course we had to carry the girls home by 10 or 10:30 at the latest, and most of the guys, we weren't required to be in home that early.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of the places that was still open, and that's Cardwell's.
Mm-hmm.
And they were very, very dear people. They were, he and his wife, and I knew one of the children. I'm not sure how many they had. They later went on to Walnut, and he built a place up there. But yeah, he was, I think it was a Deep Rock station or something it was called. Tate could enlighten us on that, though, because that's one of the places I would see your husband hanging around.
Probably so. Well, I tell you what, this is awful. We have run slap out of time. We are out of time. And I appreciate so much
Thank
you
you, Daryl.
coming today.
Thank you.
We've enjoyed this hour together. Don't forget the Jeter Family Program, Saturday night at 7 o'clock. I do hope you'll tune us in again next Monday at 7 for Daryl's Little Corner. May God bless.